The following program does not have a normal intro because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Ori? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I'm your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. If you are someone who manages to avoid social media, you have no idea the scourge of awfulness, cringiness that you have managed to escape. I tip my cap to you. I say to you, good job. Well done. Because I stumbled on something just a little bit ago, which just I was like, what is this? What am I looking at? Why does something like this exist? What is this? Someone tell me. What is this? How is this not creepy? How is this not insane? I saw this. I was just like, why does someone want a picture of their dog all over themselves? That's the nicest way I can phrase it. I mean, look at this. Look at this. I don't believe anybody actually wants. I know you don't need this. I don't believe anyone wants this. I don't think anyone does. And that's why I was like, oh, this was an advertisement thing. I was like, okay, all right. The comments here are probably going to be like, befitting the cringing. What is this? This is so unsettling. All these eyes. This should not be. Something like this should not. It's so wrong. This is so wrong. And I was like, the comments are definitely going to be killing this. They're definitely going to be killing this, right? I mean, that's what has to happen. And I'm like, no, they're really not. I hate it, but actually I love it. Thank you for showing your interest. Does it have to be a pet? Could be Yammy Tammy from I don't even know what that is. I don't know what that is. Show more replies. Only ad I've ever seen on this app that I actually like and might buy? Really? Can I put people on them? And I was just like, what am I watching here? How has our society become something that thinks this is a good idea? This is something that you need. This is something you want. I don't even the eyes just staring out at you. It's just freaky. All those eyes. It's like a horror movie. I feel like I'm in a horror movie. This would make the best gift ever. The photo. Oh, whoops. When is the put people? Sorry, wrong thing. It's another stupid. I've got advertisements inside my advertisements. I need these. Can I put my gerbil on there? I don't understand this. If I want sweatpants. So I was like, and then I realized these aren't real people. These can no one. You would not. There would be so many people killing this. This cannot be real people. These are all bots saying I hate it, but actually love it. Does it have to be a pet? It's like people are asking like real questions. That doesn't happen on Twitter. Twitter's not a place for dialogue where there's healthy conversation of like real inquiries. Oh, what's the telephone number? I really need to find out about this because I am a very potentially interested customer. So I was just like, oh, they're all bots. That's what it's got to be. So you want to find the real stuff? Let me check out quote tweets. I was like, I thought quote tweets. I'm going to find. Look how many people retweeted this. So where's the quote tweets? No, not that. I don't want to quote tweeting this garbage. All right, view quotes. All right. So this comment, I was just like, okay, that's probably going to happen. I'm not surprised. I don't know what this is. This is not what it's pretty funny. Elon Musk pants. Musk pants is pretty funny. Not gonna kid you. Musk pants is not bad. Musk pants is a pretty good job. Let me just if anyone wants to make pants with Peach or my actual dog by my guest, but who and why would you wear this? Why would any human this has to be the worst ad since this is someone real. This has to be the worst ad I've seen since the Wasteman took over, and there have been a lot of bad ones. I don't know what this is. It's not the new cult uniform. No, it doesn't come in petite. Since it's dashing. No, it doesn't come. No. We're not selling this. I'm not selling this. No. Stop. No. No. I say no. Such a weird. I was like, that can't be real. That can't be real. Things like this should not be real. But you want to know what's totally, definitely 100% real? This heartwarming story, which totally, definitely happened also. This heartwarming story. Oh my God. This is gonna. You might want to get the tissue. You might want to get the tissue because this is just a thing of beauty here. You really might want to get the tissues. So I'll give you a moment. Get the tissues because this is gonna break your heart.
Hey, excuse me, sir. I'm sorry to bother you. I had left my wallet at home, man. I was trying to run in the shoppers and get some food for my kids. I was wondering if you had a couple dollars.
Yeah, I think I got just a couple dollars. I got you, bro.
So this is what the Christmas season is all about. It's really so beautiful.
Here you go.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. God bless you.
No problem, dog.
Hey, oh, sorry, man. Let me stop you, man. I'm actually doing a social experiment. I wanted to see who would actually give me the money. So what made you decide to give me the money?
I had a couple dollars. You said you need some bread.
Man, it's not a lot of people like you left. I actually don't.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I'm going to cry.
Even need it, man. I want you to have something. Here you go, man. Yeah, that's a box of 9mm. Brass jacket, none of that cheap steel case stuff, man.
No one's ever done anything like this for me before.
Yeah, man, 124 grand.
These hollow tips?
Yes, sir.
Man, I don't even know how I was going to shoot next week, bro.
Yeah, man. I just hope I can make you smell my oats. Matter of fact, I want to give you something else, too, man. I got these AK mags for you, man. I want you to keep them, too. Yeah, man. God bless you, man. It's not a lot of people like you out.
That is so good. That is so good. That is so good. I didn't even know I was going to shoot next week. Thank you. No one ever did anything like this for me before. Oh, that is so good. I thought that was great. I thought that was beautiful. I thought that was great. So I just wanted to go from the cringe to the heartwarming, the very heartwarming stories that I bring you. I bring you heartwarming stories. Elon telling B-Radio, my brother. Elon telling advertisers they wanted to force them to censor speech to go bleep themselves, ensured I'll be a lifetime Twitter blue. Ba-ding! Ba-ding! Well, I don't know about lifetime, but I'm in there for the long haul. That's for sure. Okay. It's an interesting thing, though. I never really thought about the fact that people seeing him in that are basically like, I want to support him because he's not getting the advertising dollars. Still hard to imagine it's going to overcome, but who knows? I don't know. Good. The loss of advertising dollars. So first story out of the gate that I want to cover. First thing I want to cover is this. And I was very confused. I was really very confused when I watched this video. It's only a 2-minute video, not very long, of Vivek. And he's defending himself. And I was just like, I was actually confused. I'm first with the COVID thing. Okay. Listen to what he says. He's apologizing for. I don't understand anything about the first half of this video.
Well, the attacks keep coming. I keep speaking the truth. What's the latest one from today? They picked some statement I made in April 2020, the second month of the pandemic, when I'm on some podcast, and they asked me as a business person, what's a reasonable way to reopen the economy when the entire country, red states included, including the great state of Florida, are totally locked down. The entire country's in lockdown. What did I say? I offered an idea. I said, you know what? If you've already had natural immunity, okay, even if you were asymptomatic, but you've been exposed, there's an antibody test that proves that you've been exposed, go ahead and at least let those people out and live a normal life. The lockdowns were applying across the board. They were senseless. That might be a reasonable first start. That's what I said. Now, would I say it the same way today? Of course.
So, first and foremost, I don't know what's wrong with that answer, especially given context. Everything's shut down. You can't. No one can go anywhere unless it's like to buy essentials for your house. But the rest of us, we're the rest of the time we're all locked in a house where we basically stay at home orders across the country. I don't know what sounds so crazy about that. Like if there was a new pandemic a year from now, God forbid, totally unrelated, like, why would that not be a logical response? Why would that? I don't even understand what's wrong. I don't get what's wrong with that answer. I'm very confused as to what's wrong with that answer. Maybe one of you can tell me what is wrong. Why is that a bad answer? Why would that be a bad answer that you'd be embarrassed about today? That I don't understand why enemies are using this against him. And I also don't understand this next part.
That's what I said. Now, would I say it the same way today? Of course not. But that was
why. Of course not. I'm very confused. Is that too restrictive? Is it too lax? I don't know what this means. I don't know what the question is. You guys think that that's too restrictive? In context, in April of 2020, if he had said that and the option was no one leaves, and he's like, no, that doesn't make sense. Why don't we just have an antibody test and then anyone can go? Anyone's got antibodies, certainly. I understand a lot of you feel this way. Never lock down again. I get it. But my point is, we're saying that with the benefit of hindsight now. Why would anyone be critiquing him for saying that? Nobody was saying never lock down again a week into April. Nobody was saying that. You were not saying that. Nobody was saying that. It's very easy for us to say that now, looking back, and we look at, mortality rates and all these other different things and the impact it had. And it's very easy to say that now. But nobody was really, and there's a good reason no one was saying it's because we didn't know how damaging this could potentially be. So yeah, it's sort of, let's not lose focus about how we actually felt in the moment, whether we were making rational decisions or what seemed like, based on the information we were given, rational decisions in the moment. I don't see how this is like an irrational thing to say. So I don't know why he's so defensive about this.
It was April 2020, when we didn't have even the current facts that we do today. At a time when Republican governors are making cringeworthy statements, bowing down and praising Anthony Fauci, lockdowns in states like Florida and others. At that time, was this the most cringeworthy thing that somebody said? Of course not. At the time, it wasn't even that unreasonable of a thing to say, even though, of course, I wouldn't say that today. So that's that one. Nice try. Trying to play the stupid game of gotcha from April 2020 to mislead your followers, to prop up your puppet of a candidate. Nice try. We're done with that. Move on.
Okay, so I guess people are trying to say that he's too restrictive and saying that you need to take an antibody test or something like that. You're saying because enemies are incompetent and think public are idiots. GFY, enemies of liberty. Amen. Amen. And here's the thing that I think this is a legitimate issue is like, because it's like once bitten, twice shy. I agree with you. There really could be, God forbid, something that comes in the future, and they've ruined their ability to cry wolf. They just completely ruined it. They've ruined their integrity, and it deserved to be ruined because they did such a terrible job, such terrible, misleading stuff. And no platform, and it was social media platforms were propping up terrible narratives and basically hiding the truth because they felt people were too stupid to actually follow instructions. It was just, or think for themselves. And it's just like it was such a slap in the face and so destructive. It was a slap in the face in that, like, oh, we have to give a very simple message, which is ridiculously overly harsh because we're afraid otherwise people are going to die. And it's like, so you basically treat us like we're stupid. And like, we're all just a bunch of idiots. And anyone who's peeling back from the narrative and saying, well, let's look at this, let's look at that, was silenced because we're afraid of any other message coming out there And by the way, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving any medical advice. I never will give medical advice. If you think you've heard medical advice on this show, you are mistaken, because I never give medical advice. I really don't. Anyhow, but you're right. You're right, V. It's terrifying concern.
Next one, what are they saying? They're saying because I criticized Ronna McDaniel and Nikki Haley and Kristen Welker back to back in the same night, somehow that makes me a sexist. Well, I'm sorry, having two X chromosomes does not insulate you from criticism.
Yeah.
If you're corrupt.
Yep.
If you're failing.
Yep.
You're going to be held accountable.
Yep.
Regardless of whether you're man or woman, whether you're black or white. Whether
you want to step in the ring. You want to step in the ring. Stop trying to hide behind your gender. Or your race, or your minority, or whatever. Get in the ring. Get in the ring. The whole point is you want to be able to come up there and be held up as equal. It's the most insulting thing in the world to imply that there's some difference. You're always screaming, men and women are the same, men and women are the same. But then if someone basically is attacking three people in a row, you start fixating on the gender of why are you fixating them? They're the same. It's the stupidest thing. Are you fixating on how many eyes each of them have? This has two eyes, this one has two eyes, this one has two eyes. You're going after all the two-eyed people. It's so stupid. So hypocritical.
You're Democrat or Republican, I could care less. I'm going to speak the truth. And if you want to go the direction of identity politics, go compete against Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party. But in the United States, we live in a meritocracy. So if you have a failing Republican Party or a corrupt set of practices in the Republican Party, yeah, you're going to get called out. And nice try. Having two X chromosomes does not insulate you from criticism. So these tricks aren't going to work on me. Keep the criticisms coming. I'm going to keep responding with the truth. That's how we roll. It's going to be how we're going to get our country back.
I think he looks like he lost a lot of his luster. I'm not going to kid you. He doesn't. He looks a little defeated at this point. He's coming across to me as looking defeated. Like he's on the cusp of throwing in the towel. I think. I don't think he's. I think he's losing a lot. He lost a lot of his team, which I kind of like him, and I'm looking forward to seeing from him in 2024, 2028. I'm kind of looking forward to that. I'm not saying that I'm ever gonna, that he's gonna be my guy. I'm simply saying I think people have been far too dismissive of him because, and it's a similar thing, by the way. When everyone is so dismissive, we have to get rid of this guy. Get rid of this guy. Get rid of this guy. I want to just point something out to you. That's the same blanket thinking that the powers that be were embracing when they gave their COVID narrative instructions. If you're one of these people like, no, anyone who is potentially coming in here and trying to advocate about anything positive about someone who is not my guy is something that needs to be obliterated. You can basically, there's nothing wrong with saying he's okay. There are a lot of reasons we should be going for this other person more. It's better. That to me is totally fine. But when I see some supporters, candidate A going after candidate B or any of their supporters as like terrible people, stupid, evil, like I'm just like, it doesn't. You're doing the same thing as you're basically saying the only possible remedy is this. As opposed to like letting other people breathe with their opinions. I'm like, it's not really, it's not exactly reality that you're living in here. You might think that's best, and you can make fair points about what's best, but to basically try to obliterate that anyone who, let's say, runs against Trump, let's say you're a big Trump supporter, and I'll tell you this much right now, if you ask me, I would say to you, 95% chance. 97% chance. I'm going to go even further. I cannot imagine the set of circumstances where I will not be voting for Trump in the primary. Okay? I cannot figure out what set of circumstances may occur short of serious illness that would keep me from voting for Trump in 2024. That being said, and many people who are Trump supporters do the same thing that like DeSantis supporters do or other people do. And what they basically do is like, no. If you stand with them or if you're turning your back on America, you're a traitor, you're a neocon, you're a terrible person. This guy's fake. He's a liar. And it's like you can just say, you can just pitch for your guy without having to destroy everyone around you. I understand politicians feel need to do that. I understand that's what Trump does. I'll tell you something. That's what all politicians tend to do. They tend to try and blow up the other guy rather than promote themselves. But that doesn't mean that we, who the public, need to walk in the same type of manner. Instead, you could just be like, look, I understand there are reasons to support your guy, things to like about him. Here are the potential shortcomings that I have concerns about. Here are the reasons I support this other guy. And when you put it on the balance sheet, you can understand why my perspective makes a lot more sense than yours. But you need to be able to have those type of mature conversations without being like, no, anyone who disagrees with me is terrible. That's essentially like what big tech was doing when they're like, anyone who disagrees with the CDC, we have to silence them, cancel them, forget about them, banish them into the abyss. It's the exact same thing. That's why I want to. That's why I want to show you, to help awaken you in case you're one of these people. I'm not saying you. I'm saying someone else who's watching, not you. But the point is, to those people out there who are like, no, it's my guy, and that's the only one it could ever be, possibly. I think it's a very short-sighted, and it's a terrible mistake. And you're repeating the same mistake that these idiots made in running the CDC, in running the WHO, in running big tech, in all these different things. It's the exact same thing, where it has to be my thing and anything else has to be silenced, canceled, obliterated. It's terrible. It's terrible. And it also displays weakness. It displays an insecurity that, hey, when all the chips are weighed, when every one of these people are weighed and measured, the person who I'm picking here, the person I'm backing, merits that, and people will see that. If you really have confidence, you don't worry that you have to silence others. If you really coming along with the miracle cure, you don't need to silence others. You don't need to try and silence anything else, because everybody will be like, why would I go there? Why would I possibly do that when I already have this, which is so much better? All right. I got that on my system. Kimmy says, Trump said open up by Easter. That would have been April 12, 2020. Governors refused him. People forget that. That's true. That's true. Nikki Haley wants to curtail free speech by requiring everyone to have their name and address by the posts. I can't believe she may win. I don't think she's going to win. I think she has zero chance of winning. There's no chance she's ever going to win. But I agree with you. I think she's disaster. She's terrible. Awful, awful, awful. Oh, my God. Terrible. Terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. I got the feeling that he just likes to hear his own voice. Anyone says they speak the truth, I become suspicious of. It is the same as believing the science truth. Yeah, okay, I get it. And you want to tell me he has a used car salesman vibe to him? I get it. I understand. Okay. And that's a reason for you to feel like I just don't like him. I just don't feel comfortable with him. I just don't like him. I get that. That's okay. And so then you need to find someone else who's better. But that doesn't mean I never want to hear from this guy again. You know what I'm saying? There's a very big difference. You might say, because of these issues I have with him and this other person I like better. Okay. I mean, that makes sense. I'm simply saying, let's not just cast away anyone who we're not voting for in this election cycle as being useless. Vivek needs to be Ohio governor. Test him out first. The problem with a governor, and I agree with you, I like the idea of testing people out. The problem is that a governorship is very different from president. It's very, very different. We saw, for example, look, no one can deny that between 2020 and 2022, DeSantis was the best governor in this country. I still don't think I would like him as president. I don't think he would be effective as president. I think he was great when he had a supermajority in Florida. And I think that he was relatively ineffective between 2019 and 2020. I think he was relatively ineffective until he had that supermajority. And we certainly should expect that when he gets to Congress, if he were to become president, he's not going to have a Congress that's going to be a supermajority. So he'll be the same ineffective leader and very disappointing and frustrating, I would expect. There's no way to think that he has any particular insight on foreign policy. So what's he going to do? And my point is, so if someone just looked at Vivek and at DeSantis and saw those 4, let's say he had a supermajority 2 years earlier and saw those 4 years, they'd be like, oh my God, this got to be a phenomenal president. We wouldn't appreciate the fact that he really needs a supermajority to be that effective. Now, look, it's obviously better than not being effective with the supermajority, right? In Nation of Victims, Vivek wrote the 2020 election was not stolen. Pence did the right thing on January 6th. No matter what he says now, I say shut up. Okay, you know what? That is a very fair criticism. That's a very fair criticism. I haven't read Nation of Victims. I'm very curious about that now. I'm very, very curious about that now. That's a really valid critique to say I don't want to have anything to do with this guy. Okay. Let's move onward. Let me get to my stories. Let me get to this story here. Where? No. Okay. This is what I wanted. So a story broke this weekend about a really racist kid. You might not have heard this story, so I'll share it with you. There's a really racist kid who fortunately was called out for his vitriolic hatred of all things minority. Just like you see how, like, you know, evil can be taught to children. The NFL needs to speak out against the Kansas City Chiefs fan in blackface and native headdress. They're doubling up on racism. Are you going to say anything, Roger Goodell? By Karen Phillips. Gino president. Hopefully never a Gino president. Oh my God. So here's the kid. Look at this blackface kid. It's by Karen. This story is by Karen J. Phillips. Karen J. Phillips. If you're wondering who Karen J. Phillips is, that's Karen Phillips right here. This is Karen Phillips. So by Karen J. Phillips. It's apparently there's a boy's named Karen also. Who knew? Who knew that there could be a boy named Karen? It takes a lot to disrespect two groups of people at once, but on Sunday afternoon in Las Vegas, a Kansas City Chiefs fan found a way to hate black people and the Native Americans at the same time. Look at him with his black face and his headdress there. If it was John Gruden's, it was as if John Gruden's emails had come to life. The image of a Chiefs fan in blackface wearing native headdress during a road game leads to so many unanswered questions. Why did the camera give this fan the attention? Why did the producer allow that camera angle to be aired at all? Is this fan a kid, teenager, or young adult? Despite their age, who taught that person what they were wearing was appropriate? The answers to all these questions lead back to the NFL. While it isn't the league's responsibility to stop racism and hate from being taught in the home, they are a league that has relentlessly participated in prejudice. Relentlessly. If the NFL had outlawed the chop at Chiefs games and been more aggressive in changing the team's name, then we wouldn't be here. This Karen here, there's no place or a franchise be called Chiefs in a league that already eradicated the Redskins. Well, they shouldn't have eradicated the Redskins. That was a big mistake right there. And yet, look, and he was great. He was great. I'm simply saying that, but I don't know that he was great because he was great as a governor. I'm simply saying that someone can be a good governor and not be a great president. You're right. He was governing California. There's no there's no pretty way to mascot people. Amanda Blackhorse, as if that's her real name. A Native American activist and an organizer of a pregame protest rally told USA Today Sports earlier this year, this is what happens when you ban books against critical race theory. What? And try to erase centuries of hate. Listen to this lunatic. You give future generations the ammunition they need to evolve and recreate racism better than before. You are a freaking lunatic, Karen. You are a freaking lunatic. We are committed to inspire change, the social justice work that inspires change for the long term. Ann Isaacson, NFL Senior Vice President of Social Responsibility, told the AP back in 2021. This was the time when the league was beginning to allow players to wear decals on their helmets that read "Stop Hate, Black Lives Matter," inspire change, and say their stories as part of the NFL's social justice initiatives, which was gross and disturbing and made me not want to watch sports. I actually met a man yesterday. Who told me he stopped watching the NFL when they started kneeling for the flag. He said, I couldn't watch it. I couldn't watch it anymore. Notice how it's usually referred to as social justice and not racial justice. It shouldn't. Racial justice is, they're both stupidly awful. Let me explain something to you. When you take a word that is a pure positive word and put a modifier on it, you are cheapening and making that word worse. Justice is a beautiful word, just like truth is a beautiful word. It stands for an ideal, a utopian ideal of perfect justice. You don't need to say perfect. It's either justice or it's not. It's justice or it's injustice. You either mete out justice or you try to get closer toward justice, but not quite actual justice. That's when you're aiming at justice. When you throw a modifier on it, like it's not actual, real, pure justice. It's not justice. It's social justice. It's racial justice. It's climate justice. That means we are taking justice, throwing it in the garbage can, and then we're going to basically say, you know what? Let's just focus on things that are not just, not part of justice, but lean this way because we actually have an interest towards this. Towards favoring this social justice, racial justice. Does the climate actually deserve this? No, but we're going to call it climate justice and pretend that's a phrase which means something rather than perversion of justice, which is exactly what it means. This sick individual, Karen Phillips. However, the ultimate insult from the league can be seen during each game as end racism, and it takes all of us to sketch in the end zones. Do you know how big your balls have to be to say racism should be ended when you have a racist pass like the NFL? As if Jim, I can't read this idiot. I can't read this idiot. So he's blasting this kid. This whole article is about this kid. Well, I want to share with you who this kid is. Okay, we'll decide how racist this kid is. I actually did some research for this, or I borrowed off of someone who did some research. I'm going to introduce you to this kid right now. This is the kid right here. This is the young adult, the racist, the blackface kid who's just like a terrible, terrible human being. Terrible human being. Very racist. Very, very racist.
Please. You're not scared.
This is who Karen Phillips thinks is a terrible human being. This is the one who Karen Phillips needs to try and drag through the mud and pretend that this kid is a racist. Oh, I forgot to tell you something, by the way. I should share with you a couple of things. Yeah. Well, let's watch him a little bit more. Let's see how let's hear him say all this racist kind of stuff. He's probably gonna like blast black people here.
I am.
What are you afraid of?
I'm afraid of the stuff.
What stuff?
I'm not saying it.
By the way, this is not a joke. This is that kid. This is that kid in the headdress.
Because then it's just gonna scare me even more.
This monster. What a monster.
Should I give your bedroom away?
Karen Phillips is more noble than this kid.
Whoever wants my bedroom.
And where are you going to sleep?
With you. You have a king-size bed. I think you'll be fine.
So you could see the monstrosity that this kid is. You could see the hate in his heart. You could see what an evil, evil, evil child he is. He clearly, when he's being filmed talking about sleeping in his mother's bed, obviously it's because he hates, he thinks that there's all sorts of black people or Native Americans are going to be coming after him because he's been taught to hate them so much. Clearly, he's just this monstrous, evil, terrible kid who Karen Phillips he did the world a favor by calling out this type of evil to the world. Thank you so much, Karen Phillips. You're such a noble individual. You're such a great man. You're such a great man for making sure that you dragged that terrible racist through the mud the way you did. That was a very important deed that you did. Very, very important, because that kid, you can tell, you take one look at him and you're like, oh yeah, that's the face of evil. Now, as it happens, that kid there, this young man here, I think his first name is Holden Armenta. As it happens, he's actually Native American. Yeah, he is. But racist Karen Phillips here, racist whiny Karen Phillips here, who's never just assumed that, oh, that kid cannot possibly actually be an Indian. But sure as shooting, his grandfather is like the head of the Chumash, is like the head of like the Chumash tribes. This loser Karen Phillips here assumed that there was some sort of, what's the term that they use when they appropriation. There was Indian, Native American cultural appropriation, when in fact this boy is 25% Native American, a lot more than freaking Liz Warren. You sick, disgusting animal, Karen Phillips. Karen Phillips doubling down on this stuff. Unbelievable. As Daily Beast writes, a senior writer at Deadspin was slammed online by young football fans' mom on Monday after he claimed the boy was doubling up on the racism against Black and Native American communities by wearing a headdress and painting his face red and black at the Kansas City Chiefs game. The reporter, Karen Phillips, wrote an article on Monday morning, which we just read, headline, "The NFL needs to speak out against Kansas City Chiefs fan in blackface native headdress." The screenshot used was a side view of the boy's face, which only showed the part painted black. Wait a minute, he wasn't in blackface? Oh, Phillips criticized numerous parties, including the child Holden Armenta, writing, "It takes a lot to disrespect two groups at once." He continued, "This is what happens when you ban books stand against critical race theory and try to erase centuries of hate. You give future generations the ammunition to evolve and recreate racism better than before." Holden's mother, Shannon Armenta, angrily responded, sharing several images of her son with his full face in view. In a Monday Facebook post, she suggested that Deadspin had intentionally picked a photo that concealed the red paint on Holden's face to create division. Shannon said Holden was actually Native American, which was confirmed by Canadian news magazine The Post Millennial. Whoops. There's his Deadspin article, which we just saw that picture. We got a picture of him. Let me pull up here. Look at this kid. So cute. He's such a cute young man. That wasn't what I was looking for, though. There it is. Yeah. Here's what he really looked like. Oh. You mean he was dressed like the Chiefs' colors? Oh. I'll tell you right now, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to wear for perm this year, and I'm actually thinking of dressing up as Holden Armenta. That's what I'm thinking of doing. I'm thinking of dressing up as this little boy. That's what I want to do. Dress up like this kid. Get me the headdress, the red and black paint. Dress up like Holden Armenta. Unbelievable. So gross. It's so gross how they did this kid so dirty. So gross. You don't think that's a great costume? Dressing up like Holden Armenta? So good. Very offensive. Total Pro Sports talking about the very offensive young Chiefs fan. The heck is wrong with these? What the heck is wrong with these folks? What a sick world we live in. Such a sick one. Yeah. Did you cover BLM endorsing Trump? The Simps are mad. Did they really? Did they really endorse Trump? My justice is more specialer than your white man or justice or something. Apparently, much more special. Very, very special. Isn't restorative justice redundant? I think so. I think so. I mean, there's such a concept. One of the things that we studied in law school is like different types of remedies. So, like, they'll talk about rescission versus remuneration versus replevin. And it's like, and there are different ways to try and make the person who's wronged whole. Like if they lose something, like to give it back to them, to give them back the thing they lost, but now it's damaged. Like how you actually try to make a person whole when they're wronged. So restorative justice implies that you're returning it back to them as opposed to giving monetary compensation. So they're both efforts at being justice. This show is shadow banned tonight. I had to search it on your page. It wasn't even in my feed. I haven't watched NFL games since they started kneeling. That's what this friend of mine told me. He hasn't watched the NFL in like since Colin Kaepernick. It's crazy. I mean, it's not crazy. I understand that. Why doesn't DEI apply here? Oh, that he's coming. Because they assume he's white. That's why. They assume he's white. Wrongly. Stupid. But, and I want you to know something. I put out a poll. Because I always put like, it's funny you say that you saying the show was shadow banned before, and I try to announce the show, not always, but I frequently will announce my show in a community post. So I made a community post today, and then I had to delete it because I was like, I'm totally gonna get. The following program does not have a normal intro because I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this. Because the poll I put out, this is the way the poll is now. Okay, so this is what the poll looks like now. And I used an image poll for the first time ever. Let me see how it's coming up. This was my poll. The question is, who's more real, BlackFace Boy or wannabe Karen? Karen Phillips here. Now, the first time that I wrote this, I actually wrote BlackFace Boy, or I was thinking like blackface is like when you're putting on a fake face. So he's putting on a fake face of being a Karen. So I was like, or his name is spelled Carron, but he's actually a Karen. So I was like, he's basically a blackface Karen. So when I first put it up, I'm not going to kid you. I put it up as BlackFace Boy or BlackFace Karen. And then I was just like, I think my channel might get yeeted for that. I think my channel might get yeeted. I was like, someone's gonna twist this the wrong way on me. Someone's totally gonna. This is where I'm like later looking back, and it's like I'm like, how did I ever get like even the heel part into my own mouth? And not just the toes and the ball of my foot, but it's like the actual heel is like stuck behind my teeth as I'm trying to like yank my foot out of my mouth. I was just like, this is gonna be a mess. if I leave that poll as is. So yeah, we changed that because I was like, I don't think BlackFace Boy and BlackFace Karen is the right call on this post. So I deleted it. That was discretion being the better part of valor. I was just like, I'm just not in the mood for the headache. Thank you for the support, Catherine. I appreciate you. I really do. I really, really do. And I really wasn't meaning anything racist when I said blackface Karen, but I was just like, how am I going to explain this one? It's like I have to walk them through what blackface actually means. But then it's just like, then people can be like, no, you totally did that on purpose, Joe. So, you know, that was in your notifications. So that's good. Maybe you guys have to hit the bell. You have to hit the bell. Did you guys on Rumble, you got your notifications about me? You guys in Rumble? Did you get notifications? If you want notifications, you really just got to sign up for Locals, which is goodlogic.locals.com. I said it. It's goodlogic.locals.com. I think we have a and I know that kid is getting torn apart on Facebook, which just shows you how messed up our youth is. Like, they're just ridiculous. They're insane. Okay. You guys want to watch a video here? Because that's why I have the lights off tonight, because it's video night. Let's do it. I want to watch Elon. I want to see Elon breathing fire. If you haven't heard anything about this interview, I'm not going to ruin it for you, but there's a lot of great moments, supposedly. A lot of great moments. It's an hour and a half long. I'm going to figure out if I can try and play it a little faster, and with some closed captioning would be great. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
That we've been friends for 16 years. We've been friends for 16 years.
I don't know why it starts there.
And I promised you I'd be here, and that's why I'm here.
Well, I appreciate you being here.
For any other reason.
But let me ask you this then. Let's just
So
go at it.
he knows him for 16 years, this guy. That's why he's here. That's the only reason he can.
Just tell me what happened. You write this tweet that says that this is the actual truth. People read that tweet.
Yes.
So they're walking in the middle here. There was a tweet that Elon sent out, which said this is the actual truth. We're going to play it slow here. Where it was basically something that was critical of Israel. I wonder what was the actual. Let me see if I can pull it up. You need to understand the context on this. Elon tweet. This is actual truth. And I'm not going to kid you. A lot of my Jewish relatives thought that was so Musk's basic. Oh, gosh. Where are you? You have a picture of the tweet? This is the tweet. Zach. So somebody wrote here, okay, Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. I'm deeply disinterested in giving the tiniest crap now about Western Jewish populations coming to the disturbing whatever. And he responded to that. You have said the actual truth. That's what they're talking about. A lot of people saw this and said, oh my God, this guy hates the Jews, and says, repeated like Jewish tropes about like that Jews are looking to spread division and hate. And Elon Musk just said, you have said the actual truth. Elon Musk must be a Jew hater. And I saw this and I was like, if you look at the actual full thing that was written, I don't think at all. It's not exactly what was happening here. But let's hear Elon explain his position on this. But that's what they're talking about.
And they say Elon Musk is an anti-Semite. That he.
And by the way, as you all know, okay, I'm a Heb, I'm a Jew, practicing Jew. I do not think for 1 second, that Elon Musk hates Jews. And even when I read that tweet, I was like, no. In fact, even before I heard any explanation from him, which I still haven't heard whatever his explanation is, I was like, no. This guy, no. I know when someone doesn't like Jews. I can tell. This guy, no. Stop worrying about him. He's fine.
He is riling up this base. You're hearing it from, as I said, the White House. You're hearing it from Jewish groups all over. I think Jonathan Greenblatt from the ADL is here.
Oh my gosh, Jonathan Greenblatt. Jonathan Goebbels, the guy who spreads more anti-Semitism than anyone else, the head of the ADL, the most disgusting, awful, terrible, awful, worst representative Jews have ever had, ever, since, I don't know. When did we ever have such a bad representative? Let me think. I gotta think long and hard. Karl Marx.
There's lots of people who say this. And by the way, it's not just that.
Did you read the whole thing?
I did, and that's why I want to ask you
about responses.
Excuse me?
I said more.
More responses?
Yeah, I said more than what you just read.
Yes. No, there was absolutely more.
Yes.
But I'll tell you the thing that
That's what it was. There was more that he had written. I actually was like, what the hell does that mean? What's he trying to say there?
struck me. It wasn't, and I'm an American Jew, it wasn't just the people who had that view. It was actually people who really are anti-Semites, who said, oh my goodness, go Elon. This is fabulous.
So they're stupid. You think they're stupid in general because they're racists. So now the fact that they stupidly interpret Elon's words is a reason for you to be bothered? That's ridiculous. Like, why are you taking that position?
Ridiculous. And that actually was the thing that really set me back. I said to myself, what's going on here?
Well, who cares? Who cares? They also think that, like, you know, the Holocaust is fake. They're idiots. So just because they, you know, they believe, and they believe that they should trust the plan and that Trump is going to be reinstated. Who cares? Who cares? I mean, they're stupid people. You're sitting here all worried and bothered by how people are interpreting Elon's tweets, people whose opinions you have zero respect for. But all of a sudden, because now they're using Elon as a basis, they're twisting, you know, they're reading Elon out of context and using that as a basis to come to get some sort of I guess you would call it emboldening or fortification for whatever twisted opinions they have. And you're sitting here so worried that that's his fault now. Stop it. Just stop it. Stop worrying so much. This is like worrying about people putting on blackface. That all of a sudden all the people are offended. Stop worrying about stuff so much.
And I want to know how you felt about that in that moment when you saw all of this happening.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I did clarify almost immediately what I meant. I would say that was, you know, if I could go back and say, I should, in retrospect, not have replied to that particular person, and I should have written in greater length as to what I meant. I did subsequently clarify in replies, but those clarifications were ignored by the media, and essentially I handed a loaded gun to those who hate me, and arguably to those who are anti-Semitic. For that, I'm quite sorry. That was not my intention. So I did, you know, post on my primary timeline to be absolutely clear that I'm not anti-Semitic, and that I, in fact, if anything, am philo-Semitic. And the trip to Israel was planned before any of that happened.
I've never heard
it was neither here nor there. Do you see this thing? Mm-hmm. Do you know what it is?
I do, because I actually followed your entire trip to Israel.
Right.
Why don't you tell everybody?
This says bring them home. The hostages. It was given to me by the parents of one of the hostages. And I said I would wear it as long as there was a hostage still remaining. And I have.
What was that trip like? And obviously, you know that there's a public perception that, and you're clarifying this now, but there's a public perception that that was part of a apology tour, if you will. That this had been
That's how it was definitely twisted.
Said online. There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving.
This is I gotta tell you something. It's rare for me to be watching an interview where the person is asking questions that I want to ask. So I'm gonna give props to Alan Sorkin. I don't think I probably would like very much of his writing. I haven't read very much of his work, if anything. But yeah, I want to give props to Sorkin for asking the questions that I want answers to. And Elon is great.
We talked to Bob Iger
I hope
today.
they stop.
You hope
don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
But let's go back.
This says bring them home. The hostages. It was given to me by the parents of one of the hostages. And I said I would wear it as long as there was a hostage still remaining. And I have.
What was that trip like? And obviously, you know that there's a public perception that, and you're clarifying this now, but there's a public perception that that was part of a apology tour, if you will. That this had been said online. There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself.
But
yeah, that's what he said. You heard him right. You heard him right. There's no captions here. I would give you captions, but ain't no captions here. Get bent.
Go fuck yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
well, let me ask.
That's Bob Iger he's talking to. Bob Iger, because Bob Iger was at this summit also, the head of Disney. And he's mad at Disney. He's mad at Disney for pulling out.
You then.
That's how I feel. Don't advertise.
How do you think then about the economics of X? If if part of the underlying model, at least today, and maybe it needs to shift, maybe the answer is it needs to shift away from advertising. If you believe that this is the one part of your business where you will be beholden to those who have this view, what do you do?
Why?
I understand that there's a reality too.
He said GFY. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. He's like, I don't care. I don't need your advertising dollars. Go away. You're not blackmailing me into expressing whatever you want me to express.
Right?
Yes. No.
I mean, Linda Yaccarino's right here, and she's got to sell advertising.
Absolutely. So, no, totally. So, no. Actually, what this advertising boycott is going to do? It's going to kill the company.
And do you think that
and the whole world will know that those advertisers killed the company, and we will document it in great detail.
But those advertisers, I imagine, are going to say we didn't kill the company.
Oh yeah.
They're going to say
tell it to Earth.
But they're going to say, Elon, that you killed the company because you said these things and that they were inappropriate things and that they didn't feel comfortable on the platform, right? That's what they're going to say.
And let's see how Earth responds to that.
Okay, this goes back to
we'll both make our cases,
right?
And we'll see what the outcome is.
What are the economics of that for you? I mean, you have
now. I commented on Twitter that I was like, yeah, this is just like brass cojones in ways that it's hard to recall anyone displaying this in the financial markets, displaying these kinds of brass cojones. As a purposes of litigation, I think that if I was his lawyer, I'd be sitting there going, stop, please stop, please stop. He has an ongoing suit with Media Matters right now. I covered it on Locals at goodlogic.locals.com. And I did a whole stream where I went, page by page, paragraph by paragraph through his complaint. His complaint against Media Matters is essentially this. He says Media Matters, what they did purposefully. I'll break this down for you in under 90 seconds. He said Media Matters was out to smear us. And then what they did was they created an experience that nobody else has had on Twitter. They created an account, kept that account open for 30 days because during the first 30 days, we monitor accounts more closely. After 30, what they did was also they used this account and had it only follow the most vitriolic, evil, disgusting, terrible people on Twitter. Like 24, 25 of them. And then another 5 following the top corporation advertisers on Twitter, only following 30 accounts, no one else, trying to trick the algorithm. And what they did was they by doing this, then they wanted to get into an advertising feed, in their feed in Twitter, images of someone saying something very racist, anti-Semitic, homophobic, whatever it is, some type of terrible, genuinely ugly thing. And right below it is an advertisement for IBM, Nabisco, whatever. And they're like, and they took a snapshot of that and said, this is what you can expect to see. This is what Twitter followers will see in their feed. And you basically see, the whole Sig Heil, kill all the non-whites. And below it is like, get your new Apple. Get your new iPhone, the iPhone, your new whatever, iPhone 27, whatever it is I'm up to now. And so Media Matters took a snapshot of that and said, this is what users experience on Twitter. You'll get advertisements for your iPhone and Sig Heil. And it's like, and the lawsuit spells how they managed purposefully to trick, that they tried tricking the algorithm. And they had to work so hard to trick the algorithm by making sure they followed nobody else. And then they had to keep refreshing 13, 14 times to try and pull up at more and more advertisements into their feed. Because even with them trying to trick the algorithm, they still couldn't manage to get what they were looking for. They said we have 500 million monthly active users, which is an astonishing number. 500 million. There are roughly 8 billion people on the planet. It means 1 out of every 16 people logs into Twitter at least once a month. And they said only one account out of 500 million saw what this snapshot showed, meaning nobody saw what they managed to generate. They alone managed to generate it by working and killing themselves to try and trick the algorithm to make it look as if this is what your typical user's experience is, as if this is organic, when it was the most inorganic thing in the world, purposefully, for the reason of putting an article out there, calling that article's attention to all of X's massive advertisers, and telling them, you really want to be supporting this kind of racism? Look at the racism you're supporting. And then these advertisers started dropping out. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm not associating with like that kind of hate. I don't need that. I'm not gonna spend my advertising dollars on Twitter. And it worked. And when it worked, they had follow-ups to the article of, here's all the companies that bailed on X ever since we did our in-depth reporting showing how terrible X is. So they basically made the most inorganic situation in the world, did not tell any of the readers that they manipulated it, and pretended this is just what anyone sees when they go on there. That's what everyone sees, when that's what nobody but them has ever seen. Out of 500 million people. And there was a second thing that they said only 2 people had ever seen. There's like a separate screenshot. They said only 2 people had ever seen that. They were one of them. The chances of that being like by accident is literally like 1 in like a quintillion. So that's what the Media Matters did in order to defame and slander and interfere with existing contracts that X had with its advertising, with its customers, which is its advertisers, and they succeeded in it, costing them, I don't know, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. So that's what they basically sued for. Now Elon here is coming along. So what is the whole point and the purpose of that lawsuit? You're basically saying, because you did this, you chased away our advertisers. What Elon says here, which would almost certainly bother his attorneys, is he's implying the advertisers didn't leave because of Media Matters, that he agrees that the advertisers left because of his tweets. And if they left because of his tweets, GFY, I don't care. Go. I'm not going to be blackmailed. I'm going to be free to say what I want, and I'm not going to be blackmailed. So we can expect that Media Matters is going to say they didn't leave because of us. They left because of his tweets. And in an interview, he basically said, I don't care that they're leaving because of my tweets. Go ahead. Go away. Goodbye. I don't care. So that's why I was saying that so there's 2 possibilities as to why these advertisers are leaving. Either because of his tweets that are being interpreted as being evil, or because of the Media Matters article that came out. Now, Media Matters has taken credit that they're the ones who did it. Like, they doubled down on it to try and punish themselves, I guess, for this lawsuit, but really trying to take credit, like, ha, look what we did to X and what we did to Elon. And that's why they basically came out there and said this. What's disconcerting is I want him to bankrupt Media Matters. Media Matters is a disgusting, awful, terrible organization who's out there with purposefully designed to spread misinformation. So I want him to bury them. I don't want him to give them a lifeline to get out of it and say, no, it wasn't because of us, it was because of Elon's own tweets. And over here, Elon is basically with brass cojones saying, go away. If you don't like my tweets, go away. I'm not going to be blackmailed, which implies it's got nothing to do with the Media Matters article, but because of things he may have said on Twitter, which offended advertisers. That's what I'm saying is, as a lawyer, I'm like, look, I understand it was badass. It's a badass thing to say, but yeah, that's not what his lawyers wanted him to be saying. Now, I'm sure his lawyers are going to throw back in their face. You're saying that Elon did it. You took credit for yourself. You admitted that you did it in your follow-up articles, like bragging that they accomplished something in interrupting and interfering with these contracts. I mean, stupidly writing that. It's the worst admission in the world. I'm sure Media Matters attorneys are not too excited with Media Matters and their conduct. So that's the legal perspective that I wanted to share with you. You need to add a question mark, Blackface Karen. Oh, Would that have made it better? Would that have made it better? Elon was in Israel talking to the prime minister about how he could help with his technology on Starlink. Yeah, well, that's what everyone was saying. That was a potential apology tour. Elon is so far on the spectrum. He's ultraviolet. He is very autistic, isn't he? He's really autistic. He's been listening to Dana White. LOL. This is called firing a problem customer. It doesn't happen often enough, in my opinion. Elon doesn't have time for petty. I'll take my money elsewhere. BS. More ad space for good customers. Bye, Felicia. Yeah. The question is, are they really? He said that X is going to die because of it, and it sounded like he's saying X is going to die because of his tweets, which is inconsistent with what the claims are in his complaint. That's my point.
Enormous resources, so you can actually keep this company going for a very long time. Would you keep it going for a long time if there was no advertising?
I mean, if the company fails because of an advertised boycott, it will fail because of an advertised boycott. And that will be what bankrupted the company, and that's what everybody on Earth will know.
What do you think then of the? This goes back to the idea of trust, though.
Then it'll be gone, and it'll be gone because of an advertised boycott.
But you recognize that some of those people are going to say that they didn't feel comfortable on the platform, and I just wonder and ask you and think about that for a second.
Tell it to the judge.
But the judge is going to be
the judge is the public.
And you think that the public is going to say that Disney is making a mistake?
Yes.
And they're going to boycott Disney?
They already are.
Well, there are some that are for lots of different reasons. But you think that this is going to this goes to actually the interesting of power and leverage.
Let the chips fall where they may. Let the chips fall where they may.
Can I ask why that is the approach? And I ask it because you've been very.
He's like I said the other day, he doesn't just have like FU money, he has F me money. He's like, I don't care. Let's all lose our money together. I don't care.
Other approach.
Well, you've been very particular about the approach to Tesla. When you think about the engineering involved in that, the approach to SpaceX, the approach to some of the stuff you're doing with AI has been very specific, right? There's not a let the chips fall where they may approach to those businesses, I don't think.
No, we focus on making the best products. And Tesla's gotten to where it's gotten with no advertising at all.
I understand that.
Tesla currently sells twice as much in terms of electric vehicles as the rest of electric car makers in the United States combined. Tesla has done more to help the environment than all other companies combined. It would be fair to say that, therefore, as a leader of the company, I've done more for the environment than everyone else, and any single human on Earth.
How do you feel about that? No,
how do I feel about that?
Yeah, no, I'm asking you personally how you feel about that, because we're talking about power and influence.
I agree with you, by the way. I don't think it's going to die. I think he'll keep propping up if he has to. He has all the money in the world. I don't think he wants it to die. I think he likes his little playground. He doesn't care about, even if it's losing money, he won't care. He'll keep throwing money in it. He doesn't care about money. But I mean, as far as it being financially, there's a difference between being financially viable versus going away. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's going to disappear. Question is whether it's financially, making the money that it's been making.
I'm saying what I care about is the reality of goodness, not the perception of it. And what I see all over the place is people who care about looking good while doing evil. Fuck them. Okay?
Dang! Wow. And those punches are coming out like bam! Nothing being pulled out. And he's right. All these virtue signaling losers who are like, I'm so important, I'm so good, I really care, I'm really an ally, I help people, and yeah, you're not helping anyone. You're not helping anyone the way he is, and you're calling him a racist, calling him evil.
Let me ask you this, because I think part of this, by the way, there's some people who have said, look, owning X to begin with has just created problems, that you've created so many amazing things that are changing our world. And I know you want to make X this fabulous town square free speech platform, but that unto itself, that has created such a distraction of all of these things. This is the conversation we're having. We're not focused, or we're not talking at least yet, and we will. On Tesla, you have your Cybertruck deliveries tomorrow and everything else that you're doing. But
yes,
is there any?
It would be the biggest product launch of anything by far on Earth this year.
Is there any part of you, though, that just says, you know what? I just shouldn't have done this, or maybe I should sell it or give it away or do something else with the X piece of it.
Yeah.
Given the propensity for some of the things that you do and say on that platform to create these issues.
Yeah.
It sounds almost like he's begging him to sell. Please sell X. Please sell X. I'm a New York Times guy. Please sell X. I really want you. Don't you want to sell X? Don't you think that would be a good idea if you sold X? Don't you think you should sell X?
Of all the posts I've done on the platform, I think there might be 30,000 or something like that.
Right.
Once in a while, I'll say something foolish. And I have. And I would certainly put that comment, that you said the actual truth, among perhaps one of the most foolish, if not the most foolish thing I've ever done on the platform. And I did do my best to clarify afterwards that, you know, I certainly do not mean anything anti-Semitic in that. The nature of the criticism was simply that the Jewish people have been persecuted for thousands of years. There is a natural affinity, therefore, for persecuted groups. This has led to the funding of organizations that essentially promote any persecuted group or any group with the perception of persecution. This includes radical Islamic groups. Everyone here has seen the massive demonstrations for Hamas in every major city in the West. That should be jarring. Well, a number of those organizations received funding from prominent people in the Jewish community.
Right.
They didn't expect that to happen. But if you generically,
right,
without condition, sort of fund, if you fund persecuted groups, in general, some of those persecuted groups, unfortunately, want your annihilation. And what I meant by that, when I subsequently clarified, is that it's unwise to fund organizations that support groups that want your annihilation. Is this coming across clearly?
Yeah, no, it is. My question to you, though, is
logically, this makes a lot of sense.
Is there any part of you?
I understand what he's trying to say. It's just that, like, he's sort of Donald Trumping it, and like sort of like I understand what he's saying. Basically, it's that he's like, okay, so Jews were persecuted, and so that engendered a great deal of sympathy, and that created a culture of sympathy for the persecuted. Although I don't really agree with him on that. That's what created a culture for the persecuted. I think that's the human condition. And accordingly, then it basically started becoming like, well, let's try investing in protecting anyone who's being persecuted, including those who just claim to be persecuted when they're not. And some of those who are claimed to be persecuted are actually very evil and seeking to annihilate others. I think that's what he's trying to say. That's how I understand what he's saying. I could be mistaken. That's how I took what he said. So, did you guys hear it the same way, or did you hear something different? I don't want to endanger the lawsuit. Of course, I still hope YouTube is censoring. Oh, DR owns them. Yeah. I didn't know that's a word I can't use. Yeah, I hope that they get plowed under in lawfare as well. I think he's going to bankrupt them. I really do. I heard that Uncivil Law disagrees with me about the strength of that lawsuit. I think that lawsuit has real meat to it. I disagree with Kurt on that. If in fact that's what Kurt said, I don't know that that's what he said. I saw someone claim that Uncivil thinks the lawsuit is garbage. I think it's anything but garbage. So I'm going to ask him about Uncivil next time I see him, if it's true that he doesn't think it's got real meat to it, because I think it does.
I mean, just tell me what happens though once all this happens.
Let's say you fund a group, and that group supports Hamas, who wants you to die. Perhaps you should not fund them.
Right. But you do.
Thank you.
You do appreciate that when you wade into these very delicate waters at these very delicate times,
Yes.
that it can create a real, I mean, as it created headlines for the past 2 weeks and economic impact.
Yeah, he doesn't care about that. That's what he's
I'm just so curious what
What
happens
part
in your
of
brain
GFY
when you see all this
do you not
happening.
understand?
Are you sitting there going, oh my God, I stepped in it. I wish I didn't do that. Are you saying, screw them. I hate these people. Why are they after me?
But all of that. Yeah, all of that. I mean, look, I'm sorry for that tweet or post. It was foolish of me. Of the 30,000, it might be literally the worst and dumbest post that I've ever done. And I try my best to clarify 6 ways to Sunday. But you know, at least I think over time it will be obvious that, in fact, far from being anti-Semitic, I'm in fact philo-Semitic. And all the evidence in my track.
Well, it's good that he's dressed like Dirty Dancer, like Patrick Swayze in Dirty Dancing. So, with a mix of like Top Gun. He's got like the Top Gun bomber jacket with like the Dirty Dancing black T-shirt and black jeans.
Would support that.
Let me ask you this, though. There are people who say crazy things on X, as you know. Maybe you think they're crazy, maybe they're not.
The aspiration for X is to be the global town square. Now, if you were to walk down to, let's say, Times Square,
right?
Do you occasionally hear people saying crazy things?
Yes, but they're not. But they don't have the megaphone, right? And that's the conundrum. Right?
No,
they can only say it to the 50 or 100 people that are standing there in Times Square.
They don't have a mega. I mean, look, the joke I used to make about old Twitter was it was like giving everyone in the psych ward a megaphone. You know, I'm aware that things can get promoted that are negative beyond the sort of circle of somebody simply screaming crazy things.
The thing is that his brain is moving so fast that he's, and I've had this also. I'll tell you this. Some of the worst things I've ever, like stupidest sounding things I've ever said in my life, long before I was on social media. It was like known to be like a Joe brain fart type of thing where my mouth says something, like my brain will just jump like boom, 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 boom. And what will come out of my mouth no one has seen the parts that processed in my brain. So the part that comes out of my mouth that anyone can hear is just like, what? What did he just say? One of the most, many lifetimes ago, I was at this gathering. It's long before I met Lady Lawgic, like a decade before I met her. And it was not a decade, but a while, but long before she knew me. So I was gathering a bunch of friends of mine, and there were these girls there, and we were basically in a restaurant. And everyone there sort of knew everyone, but there was one girl who had shown up there who was sort of new to the group. And what happened was we had been ice skating, and then we went for like pizza afterwards. And at the skating rink, I remember that like this was the 80s. Don't judge me. At the skating rink, I was in a conversation with someone, and she interjected, and she was just very aggressive and hostile and annoying, and just and like was just like, I was just like, oh my gosh, keep this woman away from me. That was my impression of her. So now I'm sharing with you my brain jump mouth fart story. Okay, so we're at the pizza. We're all having pizza, and like, so someone like who I knew said, "Oh, have you met this girl?" Who I had met an hour earlier, and came to the conclusion that she was like this, like you know, dog that's constantly barking. In my brain, so they said, "Have you ever met this girl before?" So in my brain, this is how my brain worked. I was like thinking, yeah, and I think that she's a barking dog, and I pictured Dino from the Flintstones chasing after Fred and running after them. And then in the visual, so you see like Fred Flintstone running and Dino running right behind him. And then you hear like the chunk and like of like the bite. And then you see Dino walking back proudly with like a piece of like Fred Flintstone's underwear in his mouth that he just sort of like managed to bite through and rip off the underwear. And like, so like, and that's what I basically pictured, that like when I met her, I felt like Fred Flintstone running away from Dino, who's chasing after and biting through and ripping through and then proudly marching off with like, you know, the part of his underwear. So the way that, but all that processed in like a flash in my brain. Like, well, as soon as the question was asked to me, have you met this girl before? What came out of my mouth was, so I was like, have I met her? Have I met her? I've got the ripped underwear to prove it. And like 20 people sitting at the table, just all of a sudden, I was at the end of the table. All of a sudden, everyone at the table just started facing forward, and there was like dead silence when I said, have I met her? I got the ripped underwear to prove it. Everyone at the table is just like, what? And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I just realized what came out of my mouth and how completely separate and apart that is from like what anyone else was processing in their brain. So like, I was just like, no, you know, because Fred Flintstone with Dino, and he just never. Yeah. So when you talk about how like your brain moves sometimes way too fast for your mouth, I totally got that. I assumed that others knew about Fred Flintstone and the ripped underwear, but apparently no one else at the table knew. So there you go. No drugs. No drugs. Yeah, none of them ever talk to me again.
In Times Square, which happens all the time. You know, so it's actually pretty rare for something, frankly, that is hateful to be promoted. It's not that it never happens, but it's fairly rare. I mean, I would encourage people to look at, for those that use the system, when you look at the sort of the feed that you receive, how often is it hateful, and over time has it gotten more or less hateful? And I would say that if you look at the X platform today versus a year ago, I think it is actually much better. I mean, what is your personal experience?
Are you surprised?
I'm just curious.
Yeah, I agree with him. It is much better now than it was a year ago.
So you use this?
I use the platform religiously. I
So you
will
would
admit to
notice.
being an addict,
You would
and I
notice.
use the For You, and I will say, now the problem is, because I'm a journalist, I go looking for stuff.
Well, that's not our
I'm
fault.
just saying. And because I also think the algorithm for me personally, because I'm looking for stuff, also is feeding me other things.
This is actually a challenge in that, like sometimes people will say, like, why is it showing me, posts from this person that I hate? And we were like, well, did you interact a lot with this person that you hate? Well, yes. Well, therefore, it thinks that you want to interact more with this person that you hate. That's like a reasonable.
Let me ask this:
you kind of want to have an argument.
When you tweet,
yeah.
do you ever
Post.
or post? Let's say post. When you post,
I mean, listen, I'm open. If anyone can come up with a better word, that would be great.
when you post, though,
But
Oh, he's really trying to dissociate from Twitter. That's why he doesn't want to say tweet. That's why he says post. Post to X. Oh my gosh. It was a very that's a story I thought I would never tell. But that tweet, that super chat really kind of begged for that story. So
the least bad word I can think of is post. Yeah.
when you post, though, are you trying to rile up either a base or an audience? Do you recognize the power you have in that? And also, by the way, not just rile up one version of side of it, but also rile down, which is to say, as I said, there are people who are demonstrably anti-Semitic on the site. Who I get Jew boy things and all sorts of things that come my way.
Hey, for a while they thought I was Jewish, so they would, I'd get it too.
But no. But the question is,
my name is super Jewish.
Do you ever think to yourself, you know what? I'm going to go online and I'm going to say these people.
Oh, I guess Elon is. Elon is a pretty Jewish name.
I condemn these people that are on my site saying these things.
See, this is what I hate. I hate when the left does this. Can you condemn? Can you condemn? Can you just stop it? Just stop it. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. This is what we saw them do to Trump all the time. But why can't you condemn? Why don't you condemn? Why don't you condemn? Why don't you condemn? And it's like, and it would every day, I condemn, they're terrible. I condemn the KKK, I condemn. And it's like, but you never condemn. I've condemned over 1 million times. It's so stupid. And no matter how many times you condemn, they pretend that you haven't condemned. It's just like, it's like, dance, monkey, dance. Dance for us, monkey. Why didn't you dance for us today? You danced for us yesterday. Why didn't you dance for us today? Just stop. Just stop. Just stop. Stop gaslighting and pretending that I need to dance for you. Why don't you dance? Why don't you start condemning? Go condemn. Every day you should condemn. That's what you should do. Make it your life's mission that you're making a daily condemnation. Just stop it.
Because
I have said,
you say I've condemned anti-Semitism, but do you ever go?
Yeah, I said I condemn. I literally posted I condemn anti-Semitism in all its forms. Like that is a literal, I believe, literal post that I made. I mean, I'm like, listen, if I can get out the thesaurus, if you, and we could,
let me ask you a different question.
You compose it, I'll post it.
Okay, let me ask you this. You were on a podcast about a month ago.
I call him Alan Sorkin.
And you said something that struck me.
It's Andrew Sorkin. I wonder if he's related.
And it struck me as accurate, came out of your mouth, so hopefully it is. But I'm hoping we go deep on this.
Just because it came out of my mouth does not mean it's true.
No, but you said my mind is a storm. I don't think most people would want to be me. They may think they want to be me, but they don't know. They don't understand. What did you mean by that? What was your mind being a storm? And I think it. I mean, I have known you for quite some time. I think it is a bit of a storm.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, in as much as a weather metaphor makes sense, my mind often feels like a very wild storm. I mean, I have a fountain of ideas. I mean, I have more ideas than I could possibly execute. So I have no shortage of ideas. Innovation is not the problem. Execution is the problem. I've got 1 million ideas. I mean, I've got an entire design for an electric supersonic vertical takeoff jet, but I just can't do that as well. I've had that for 10 years. And there's 1 million things.
But is your storm a happy storm?
No.
It's not a happy storm.
No.
Look at how I like how he sometimes he'll get asked a question that it's almost like I want to process this in my brain.
Tell us about that, because I think that actually, when people try to really understand you, I think that there's a lot of this comes from some other place, and I want to talk about that. What do you think that is?
we should need like a psychiatrist couch here or something. I think to some degree I was born this way, and then it was amplified by a difficult childhood, frankly. But I can remember even in happy moments when I was a kid that it just feels like there's just a rage of forces in my mind constantly. Now this, productively manifests itself in technology and building things for the most part. So, and I think on balance, the output has been very productive. I think the results, as we discussed earlier with SpaceX, Tesla, PayPal, which is still going today, the first internet company that I started. In fact, the first internet company I started, Zip2, was funded by a New York Times company, Hearst Knight Ridder, and in fact, we wrote some of the software for the New York Times website, and we helped bring online several hundred newspapers that previously were only in print. Now this is in the 90s, which at this point is like, I'm like a grandpa black, basically. You know, the 90s and internet feels like a pre-Cambrian era when there were only sponges. Anyway, so, you know, I feel like a lot of productive things have been done. And you can also look at Tesla as being sort of many companies in one. Like our supercharging network is, if the Tesla supercharging network were its own company, it would be a Fortune 500 company by itself. Just the supercharging system. We also make the cells. We build the power electronics and the powertrain from scratch. We have the most innovative structural design, the largest castings ever used. We have the best manufacturing technology at Tesla, better manufacturing technology than companies that have been doing it for 100 years. So these demons of the mind, you know, are for the most part harnessed to productive ends. But that doesn't mean that once in a while they, you know, go wrong.
And this is a question I think a lot of people, you know, are always trying to figure out about not just.
So it sounds like, by the way, it's an interesting thing. He doesn't sound like he's a happy person. Perhaps. I wonder whether you think whether you interpret it that way as well. I'm curious. I'm gonna make a poll about that. Whether you think he's happy. Do you think he has a happy life? I think most people would assume that he's got a happy life, but I don't know. Let me make that poll. He's got a happy life, but I don't know.
You, but sometimes themselves. Meaning, what is driving all this? Doing all of these things.
I do happy life. Heck, but sorry about that. I
screwed up. You, but sometimes themselves.
I screwed up.
What is driving?
I screwed up.
Doing all of these things.
I do happy. All right, that's better. Sorry about that.
Do you think that you would be as successful, whatever success is, if it wasn't being driven by some? I think that there's something you're trying to prove, either to yourself or to somebody. I don't know. We're all trying to prove something. Maybe I'm trying to prove to my mother. I don't know.
No, if I were to describe my philosophy, it is a philosophy of curiosity. I mean, I did have this existential crisis when I was around 12 about what's the meaning of life? Isn't it all pointless? Why not just commit suicide? Why exist? I read the religious texts. I read the philosophy books that, well, especially the German philosophy books, made me quite depressed, frankly. One should not read Schopenhauer and Nietzsche as a teenager. But then I read Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is a book of philosophy in the form of humor. And the point that Adams was making there was that we don't actually know what questions to ask. That's why he said that, you know, the answer is 42. Like, basically, Earth's a giant computer, and it came up with the answer 42. But then to actually figure out what the question is, that's the actual hard part. I think this is generally true also in physics. At the point at which you can properly frame the question, the answer is actually the easy part. So my motivation then,
by the way, this is true. Just to let you know, that's true for litigation also. The hardest part about litigation is figuring out exactly how you want to word your question, because how you word the question is everything. It's really everything. And I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something else. I'll share with you something about like life as a practicing Orthodox Jew. So a lot of times we have, when we have a question about what's the proper way to handle something, so we'll ask a rabbi. And I'll tell you right now that the way you word your question is going to have a significant impact on what that answer is. And I've spent a lot of time sometimes just mulling over exactly how do I want to word this question in a way that I'll get a response that I think is appropriate. I'm not trying to rig the answer to give me the answer that I'm rooting for, but yeah, it's a little bit. I don't want to get too deep into that, but the nature. But this is something that I've invested a great deal of time to think about, like how questions are worded, because that is usually almost going to almost invariably it will dictate the answer.
Is finite, really a flash in the pan on a galactic time scale. But if we can expand the scope and scale of consciousness, then we are better able to figure out what questions to ask about the answer that is the universe. And maybe we can find out the meaning of life, or even what the right question to ask is. Where did we come from? Where are we going? Where are the aliens? Are there aliens? These questions, and is there new physics to discover? Or is this, because there seems to be some real questions about dark matter and dark energy. And so the purpose of SpaceX is to extend life beyond Earth on a sustained basis, so that we can at least pass one of the Fermi great filters, which is that of being a single planet civilization. If we are a single planet civilization, then we are simply waiting around for some extinction event, whether that is man-made or natural. But if you're a single planet civilization, eventually you will, something will happen to that planet and you will die. If you're a multi-planet civilization, you will live much longer. Also, a multi-planet civilization that's the natural stepping stone to being a multi-stellar civilization and being out there among the stars. So, this I think has this is not simply a defensive motivation, but it is also one where that gives meaning, man's search for meaning.
Can I ask you
but let me finish this philosophy point, even though it may seem rather esoteric.
It doesn't seem esoteric. It's actually an interesting point that, like, I guess if your objective is the indefinite perpetuation of mankind, in that case, he's basically saying, which is what we all inherently striving for, as part of our natural instinct. So in that case, the next step of going interstellar and having life on having mankind on other planets is natural. It's a necessity at some point. We just don't know whether the necessity is 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, 10,000 years from now, 100,000 years from now. But at some point, we have to expect that life as we know it on this planet will be unsustainable for one reason or another, whether it's because of our own doing or because of climate or some interstellar species.
It may resonate with a few people. We must get past this Fermi filter of being this great filter of being a single planet civilization. And if we do that, we are more likely to understand the nature of the universe and what questions to ask. If you're a believer in the philosophy of curiosity, then I think you should support this ambition. But it's more. Being a multi-planet species is more than simply, life insurance for life collectively. That's a defensive reason. But I think also that life has to be more than simply solving one sad problem after another. There have to be reasons where you wake up in the morning and you're happy to be alive. There have to be reasons that you have to say, why are you excited about the future? Like, what gives you hope? And if you aren't sure, ask your kids. And I think the idea of us being a spacefaring civilization and being out there among the stars is incredibly inspiring and exciting and something to look forward to. And there need to be such things in the world.
Let me ask you a different question about confidence. We were having
such an interesting way of looking at
where
life.
Where people get their confidence.
And look, for many of us, religion will provide those answers. But, but I guess if you don't have religion in your life, in that case, I can understand that becomes the pressing need, is like, otherwise, I think that's it's his way of coping. What I'm taking from this is he probably doesn't have doesn't feel a significant attachment to God. If he believes in God or not, I have no idea. I've never really looked into Elon Musk on that kind of level. But this is what he's the questions he's asking most religious people, and it's of pretty much any religion. You can be Christian, Jewish, Muslim. Religion invariably provides an answer to that. And detractors of religion would allege that that's its primary appeal, is basically sorting through those, providing an answer and using that answer as a way of eradicating that emptiness which Elon just expressed, of like, what is the purpose of mankind? What are we doing? Like, what's the objective? So it's a really, I didn't expect him to get so deep.
Confidence from. Some people have great insecurity. Other people have great confidence. And I was thinking about you because you have a very interesting
I agree with
history
you,
where
Cedar Rose. I think that, I mean, really, it's not what he's basically, his answer is to kick the can much further down the road than anyone else is thinking about kicking the can. But it's still kicking the can, meaning he's kicking that can all the way out into outer space. But so let's assume for a moment that there was success, that he's completely successful, or some follower of his is successful, or 1,000 years from now, or 100 years, whatever it is, someone is successful in starting to create interstellar human life. Let's imagine that. So in 10,000 years, humans living on planet Gamma X4 are going to have the same questions. Okay, so now we've engaged in better self-defense, but of our species, but still, what's our purpose? Like, why are we here? What's the objective? So I think it's really kicking. He's asking important questions. I just think that the answers he's providing are really kicking the can down the road, and because that's making the end, the means the end unto itself. Meaning the means for extending humankind, that he rationalizes that, or his perspective is that okay, we feel a certain hopelessness as far as our whole purpose here. So let's reach for the stars in order to help better preserve mankind. But why would you think that someone's going to find answers there at that point? He's like, well, it gives a reason for hope. Okay, but once that's achieved, you know, once that frontier is conquered, or if not conquered, it feels like it's been sufficiently addressed, because obviously space, I guess, is infinite. You can never fully conquer it. Then what?
people have told you over and over again that you're wrong.
Well, sometimes they're right.
Well, sometimes they are, but I would say that when it comes to Tesla, when it came to SpaceX, people told you that you were crazy, you were out of your mind. This was never going to happen. This was never going to work. And so what I'm going to ask you this, though, is now when people say you're wrong, this isn't right, do you look at that and say, you know what, that's like a red flag for me, because I've been told so often that I'm wrong that I know that I know I'm right because I've had that experience? Or are there people in your life when they say, you know what, Elon, this is not right? Do you know what I'm saying?
I mean, I think what you're trying to say is that do I at this point think because I've been right so many times when others have said I'm wrong, that now I have to believe I'm right when in fact I'm wrong?
You did very well. What do you think?
No, I'm right. Yeah, no, look, here's the thing.
Lily Smith says, my son is highly functioning autistic. If he's being pressured by things he doesn't understand, he's miserable. If he can do his thing, he's happy as a clam. I wasn't asking because he's autistic, although I do think that his autism is going to play a role in his happiness, and certainly must have affected his childhood, his ability to form bonds and friendships and things of that nature. So, yeah, I don't think I would assume he probably had a miserable childhood. Many people would assume that with his level of wealth, how could he not be happy? I think, right? I mean, that's what I would think a lot of people would think. In my poll here, it's very close. I only have 190 people voted so far, which is surprising. It's very close. Where do you think Elon is happy? Between yes, no, and I wouldn't begin to guess. It's like really neck and neck. It's almost as close as it could possibly be. So jump on in there. I'm going to ask you Rumble folks over here in the ghetto. I'm peeking at you. If you think that he's happy, put a 1. If you think he's not happy, put a 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Am I on the wrong right thing? I don't know what's happening there. I got 296 and I see 0 chat happening and 62 likes. All right, I'll give you guys some attention here, okay? You're so I don't know what the heck is happening there. I'll give you folks some attention, okay? You guys are really great. You guys are amazing. 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 If you get the like, I'd really appreciate it. And maybe subscribe. Maybe one day I'll get to 10,000. Who knows? Who knows? Let me just hit the go.
Physics is unforgiving. Physics is unforgiving. So, I mean, I have, these various little sayings that I've come up with, that physics is the law and everything else is a recommendation.
Right.
In the sense that you can break any law made by humans, but try breaking a law made by physics. That's much more difficult. So if you are wrong and persist in being wrong, the rockets will blow up and the cars will fail. So this is, we're not trying to figure out what flavor of ice cream is the best flavor of ice cream. Like if there's 1,000 things that can happen on a rocket flight, and only one of them gets the rocket to orbit.
I peeked on you, diggers.
And so being wrong results in failure when dealing with physical objects.
So that's the interesting part. So now you've built these great companies that physically, the physics of them are enormously successful. So successful, arguably, that you have leverage over everybody else, right? Nobody else can do Starlink. Nobody else can get nobody else can get the rockets in space yet. Amazon and Jeff Bezos are trying, but they haven't yet.
I hope he does.
You hope he does?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, but I actually agree with a lot of Jeff's motivations. I mean, I think, he's, so let me put it this way. If there was a button I could press that would delete Blue Origin, I wouldn't press it. So I think it's good that he's spending money on making rockets too. It's just perhaps he spend more time on it, but it's up to him. I should make a point here. So nothing any of my companies have done has been to stifle competition. In fact, we've done the opposite. So at Tesla, we have open sourced our patents. Anyone can use our patents for free. How many companies do you know who've done that? Can you name one? I can't. At SpaceX, we don't use patents. So I mean, just once in a while, we'll file a patent just so some patent troll doesn't cause trouble. But we're not stopping any. We've done nothing anti-competitive. We've done nothing to stop our
I'm not suggesting
that is amazing.
I just want to clarify.
That is amazing.
Some companies have done anti-competitive things.
I'll tell you.
The strange thing, or the unusual thing about SpaceX and Tesla is that we've done things that have helped our competition. So
I'll tell you this. This is how I feel like I can relate to Elon. I have made a public statement that I have zero intention of ever copyright claiming anyone. So whatever I produce here, people want to use it, reproduce it, whatever, do whatever they want with it, have at it. I don't care. Enjoy. If you can make money off it, I don't know how. Maybe you can teach me. Teach me how to make money off of it. You can do it. God bless you. So, and because I always thought, I was like, why am I worrying about something like that? Just the opposite. Like if someone's, I take it as a compliment. So yeah, I can definitely relate. Now, obviously, whatever I'm producing probably has less value than what he's producing, but it's a similar mindset.
At Tesla, we have made our supercharger system open access. We've made our charger technology available for free to the other manufacturers.
The reason
no walled garden. We could have put a wall up, but instead we invited them in.
The reason I mention this, though, is because you've had this success in the physics world, you now have these very difficult decisions that have huge impacts on the world that are not physical decisions at all. They're decisions of the mind. They're decisions that you and others have to make, and there's a question whether you should be making these decisions at all. And I think about it in the context of Starlink. Obviously, there was the report about how it's being used in Ukraine and the Russia war. There's questions about Taiwan, whether Taiwan should use it or will use it. I believe they're not right now because they're worried that at some point maybe the Chinese will tell you that you have to, they have leverage over you and you're going to have to turn that off, right? I mean, these are very difficult decisions, and I'm so curious how you think about that. And not just the decisions, the fact that you have that power.
I think it's important for the audience to understand that the reason I have these powers is not because of some anti-competitive actions. It's simply because we've executed very well.
Oh, I'm not dismissing that. I think there are so many people, by the way, who are huge supporters of what you've created.
There are other satellites out there,
But they're not as good as yours. And
right.
the same, and we can say that maybe make the same argument of cars and everything else. But as a result, that gives you enormous leverage. Right?
Okay.
I mean, with the exception of, by the way, these advertisers who aren't on X, in every other instance, everybody needs you.
Well, I mean, nobody's letting me use our product if it's better than use somebody else's product if the other product's better.
And I accept that. And maybe one day somebody else will create a better product.
Is it like, how is it a bad thing to make better products than other companies?
Well, and I want to go back to the Starlink piece of it, though, because
how dare you make superior products?
Geopolitical ramification in terms of your power and how you think about that specific power, and then the power that the U.S. government might have either over you or not over you, the power the Chinese government might have over you or not over you, and how those things get used.
I mean, what are you suggesting?
I'm asking the question around this very idea of how these satellites are going to be used, whether you think that you should have control of them, whether the government should have control of them.
Do you trust the government?
Well, there's a lot of people who don't trust the government.
I agree with you. Those shoes
But then this goes
bad.
back to the trust of you.
I just want to say that Doug here pointed out how she really doesn't like those shoes, and I'm going to tell you, she know. I didn't notice them, but now they're bothering me.
Right?
I mean, like I said, we're not the only company who has communication satellites. Our satellites are just much better than theirs. So it's not like we have a monopoly.
Right. Do you feel like anybody has
product? It's not like.
Do you feel anybody has leverage over you?
No, he just said that earlier.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, if we make bad products that people don't want to use, then the users will vote with their resources and use something else.
Let me pivot the conversation for a second.
I mean, certainly, my company's overseen by regulators, and while once since SpaceX, Starlink, Tesla are overseen by cumulatively over 100 regulators, in actually more than that, a few hundred regulators, because we're in 55 countries. If you sum up all the times that I had an argument with regulators, of hundreds of regulators over decades, it can sound really terrible, except but they forgot to mention that there were 10 million regulations we complied with and only 5 that I disagreed with. But they listed all the 5, and it sounds like, wow, this guy's a real maverick. I'm like, yeah, but what about the 10 million we complied with?
Do you, let me one related thing on this, the leverage of countries and things over you, regulators. X is this free speech platform. You do business in China. Lots of business in China. That's
oh my gosh, those shoes.
Business, I imagine.
Well, not SpaceX.
Stop with the shoes.
How do you think about the leverage that the Chinese have over you? And do they have leverage over you? And how do you feel about, some people would say, is it hypocritical for you to be doing business in China, or frankly in other countries as it relates to X and other things that don't follow this free speech path that you have espoused?
The best that the X platform can do is adhere to the laws of any given country. Do you think there's something more we could do than that?
I think it would be very hard, but I just wonder, given the sort of strong philosophical approach that you've been vocal about, whether you say to yourself, maybe I shouldn't be doing business in that country.
Well, first of all, Starlink and SpaceX are no business in China whatsoever. Tesla has one of 4 vehicle factories in China, and China is, I don't know, a quarter of our market or something like that. So it's a quarter of the market of one company. The same is true, by the way, of all the other car companies. They also have something on that order of a quarter of their sales in China. So if that's a problem for Tesla, it's a problem for every car.
Yes.
I mean, I think one has to be careful about not conflating the various companies, because I can only do things that are within the bounds of the law. I cannot do beyond that. My aspiration is to do as much good as possible and to be as productive as possible within the bounds of what is legal. More than that, I cannot do.
I want to pivot and talk about AI for a moment. We had Jensen Huang here, who's a big fan of yours, as you know.
Yeah, Jensen's awesome.
Talked about bringing you the first box, by the way,
yes.
With Ilya, interestingly enough.
Yes.
Back in 2016, I think.
There's a video of Jensen and me unpacking the first AI computer at OpenAI.
So I'm so curious what you think of what's just happened over the past 2 weeks while you were dealing with this other series of headlines. There was a whole other series of headlines at OpenAI. What did you think?
Well,
you founded it. Co-founded.
Co-founder, yeah. Well, the whole arc of OpenAI, frankly, is a little troubling because the reason for starting OpenAI was to create a counterweight to Google and DeepMind, which at the time had 2/3 of all AI talent and basically infinite money and compute, and there was no counterweight. It was a unipolar world. And Larry Page and I used to be very close friends, and I would stay at his house, and I would talk to Larry into the late hours of the night about AI safety. And it became apparent to me that Larry did not care about AI safety. I think perhaps the thing that gave it away was when he called me a speciesist for being pro-humanity.
That's crazy.
As in, like a racist, but for species.
I didn't even know.
So I'm like, wait a second. What side are you on, Larry?
I know there's a few of you. I know.
And then I'm like, okay, listen, this guy's calling me a speciesist. He doesn't care about AI safety. We've got to have some counterpoint here because
welcome aboard, Riff
we could be. This is no good. So OpenAI was actually started, and it was meant to be open source. I named it OpenAI after open source. It is in fact closed source, super closed. It should be renamed super closed source for maximum profit AI. So because this is what it actually is. I mean, Faye loves irony. I mean, in fact, a friend of mine says like the way to predict outcomes is the most ironic outcome is the most. It's like this Occam's razor, like the simplest sort of explanation is most likely. And my friend Jonah's view is that the most ironic outcome is the most likely. And that's what's happened with OpenAI. It's gone from an open source foundation, a 501c3, to suddenly it's like a $90 billion for-profit corporation with closed source. So I don't know how you go from here to there. That seems like I don't know how you get. I don't know. Is this legal?
So as you saw Sam Altman get ousted by somebody Ilya, and Ilya was a friend of yours.
Yes.
You brought him there. Your relationship with Larry Page effectively broke down over you recruiting him away. I think
that's correct. That was the fight. That was the Larry refused to be friends with me after I recruited Ilya.
And so here's Ilya apparently saying something is very wrong.
I think we should be concerned about this because I think Ilya actually has a strong moral compass. He thinks about, he really sweats it over questions of what is right. And if Ilya felt strongly enough to want to, fire Sam, well, I think the world should know what was that reason.
Have you talked to him?
I've reached out, but he doesn't want to talk to anyone.
Have you talked to other people behind the scenes? Is this all happening?
I've talked to a lot of people. I've not found anyone who knows why. Have you?
I think we are all still trying to find out.
I mean, look, one of two things is either it was a serious thing and we should know what it is, or it was not a serious thing and then the board should resign.
What do you think of Sam Altman?
I have mixed feelings about Sam. I do, the ring of power, can corrupt. And this is the ring of power. So, I don't know. I want to know why Ilya felt so strongly as to fire Sam. This sounds like a serious thing. I don't think it was trivial. And I'm quite concerned that there's some, dangerous element of AI that they've
discovered.
Created. Yes.
You think they've discovered something?
That would be my guess.
Where are you with your own AI efforts relative to where you think OpenAI is, where you think Google is, where you think the others are?
I mean, on the AI front, I'm in somewhat of a quandary here because I've thought AI could be something that would change the world in a significant way since I was in college, like 30 years ago. So the reason I didn't go build AI right from the get-go was because I was uncertain about which edge of the double-edged sword would be sharper, the good edge or the bad edge. So I held off on doing anything on AI. I could have created, I think, the leading AI company, and kind of OpenAI actually kind of is that. Because I was just uncertain if you make this magic genie, what will happen? Whereas I think building sustainable energy technology is much more of a.
And I'll tell you that I personally, I've sort of been in my brain when it comes to AI. I've had that same thought process a lot as to whether AI is ultimately good or bad. And it's very easy to be knee-jerk and say bad. That long-term it's bad. And maybe it is. I don't know. But then I think to myself, Well, when it comes to computers, we have viruses, and then we have Norton to sort of fight those viruses. Like humanity is constantly in a struggle between, like, you know, good and evil. So does that mean that creating a new tool, which is potentially a more powerful tool, because it can be held by evil, is a reason to not create that tool? And maybe, I don't know, philosophically, morally it is. But we haven't said that about any other tool. We didn't say it about computers. We didn't say it about cars. And everything comes with good and bad. So the concept that we're incapable of bottling that genie, I'm not saying that there's not reason to have concerns, but to just assume that, like, this will invariably lead to disaster, somehow we managed to avoid hitting those disaster fronts on all the other new technologies we created. So it's very easy to take a whole Jurassic Park type of perspective, like, well, if you create a dinosaur, that dinosaur is ultimately going to get loose. You know, Jeff Goldblum was very excited to, like, basically point out how everything is ultimately going to get chaotic and bodies torn apart. But you can say that about any technological advancement. You could say that about medical science that could be used to, like, create terrible diseases. You can say that about, you know, weapons of great destruction can be used to harm people or to defend people. Okay, and eventually it's going to be created. So would it not make sense for, like, people who we hope and trust are good people to be at the forefront of that and be able to help potentially protect from it? Because, you know, if we put our heads in the sand, someone else is going to create AI. So that's just the reality. So what are you going to do?
Single-edged sword, that is single-edged good. Making life multiplanetary, I think single-edged good. You know, Starlink, mostly single-edged good. I mean, giving people better connectivity to people that, you know, don't have connectivity or too expensive, I think is very, you know, very much a good thing. Starlink was instrumental, by the way, in halting the Russian advance, and the Ukrainians said so. So, you know, I think there's, but with AI, you've got the magic genie problem. You may think you want a magic genie, but once that genie's out of the bottle, it's hard to say what happens.
How far are we away from that genie being out of the bottle, you think? We think it's already out?
When the genie is certainly poking its head out.
The AGI, the idea of artificial general intelligence, given what you now are working on yourself, and you know how easy or hard it is to train, to create the inferences, to create the weights. I hope I'm not getting too...
My answer to this question is, you know, yeah, we're way ahead of where we ever were before. But if you look at how we can, how easy it is to detect AI from real, I think that 20 years from now, people will look at the AI we have today with the same disdain that we have for video games from 20 years ago as being, you know, pathetic. So I think that 20 years from now, we'll look back on the AI of the 2020s as being a joke, like Pong compared to, like, you know, NFL Madden.
Far in the weeds of just how this works, but those are the basics behind the software end of this.
It's funny, you know, all these weights, they're just basically numbers in a comma separated value file. And that's our digital god, the CSV file. Not that funny. But that's kind of literally what it is. So I think it's coming pretty fast, you know.
Is that, I mean, you famously have admitted to overstating how quickly things will happen, but how quickly do you think this will happen?
If you say smarter than the smartest human at anything,
yep, it
may not be then quite smarter than all humans, all machine augmented humans, you know, because people have got computers and stuff. There's a higher bar. But if you say smarter than any, you know, can write as good a novel as, say, J.K. Rowling, or discover new physics or invent new technology, I would say that we are less than 3 years from that point.
Let me ask you a question about XAI and what you're doing. And because there's an interesting thing that's different, I think, about what you have relative to some of the others, which is you have data, you have information, you have all of the stuff that everybody in here has put on the platform to sort through. And I don't know if everybody realized that initially. What is the value of that?
Yeah, I mean, data is very important. You could say data is probably more valuable than gold.
But then maybe you have actually, maybe you have more, maybe you have the gold in X in a different way. In a way, again, that I don't know if the public appreciates what that means.
Yes, X is might be the single best source of data. I mean, it is, there are more, people, links that go to, people click on more links to X than anything else on Earth. Sometimes people think Facebook or Instagram is a bigger thing, but actually there are more links to X than anything. This is public information, you can Google it.
Okay, let me ask you
so it is where you would find what is happening right now on Earth at any given point in time. The whole OpenAI drama played out, in fact, on the X platform. So it is one of the, it's not, Google certainly has a massive amount of data, so does Microsoft. So it's not like, but it is one of the best sources of data.
Can I ask you an interesting IP issue, which I think is actually something I could say as somebody who's in the creator business and journalistic business and whatnot, where I care about copyright. So one of the things about training on data has been this idea that you're not going to train, or that these things are not being trained on people's copyrighted information. Historically, that's been the concept.
Yeah, that's a huge lie.
Say that again?
Yes, these AIs are all trained on copyrighted data, obviously.
So you think it's a lie when OpenAI says that this is not, none of these guys say they're training on copyrighted data?
Oh, that's a lie.
It's a lie,
Yeah,
straight up.
It's a straight up lie.
Okay.
100%.
So then,
obviously, it's been trained on copyrighted data.
Okay, so let me ask you a second question, which is all of the people who have been uploading.
I mean, it's like one every minute. Yeah.
All of the people who have been uploading articles, the best quotes from different articles, videos.
Why don't we just use AI to create better AI? Wouldn't that be the answer? Isn't that why we have AI? Doesn't that make sense? Is that a crazy question? Is that a crazy question? All right, I'm at 4839 here. And here's the situation. But I think that's a great question, personally. Why don't we use AI to create? If you have an answer to that question. Well, you can tell AI what you're looking for. And then just ask AI to make better AI. I think that's a really good question. All right, this is what I'm going to do now, because I want to point something out to you. I'm going to share something with you, and that is tomorrow I have a motion that's due that I have to file. So, and it's kind of stressing me out a little bit because I need to get it done. I have to get that thing uploaded and filed. I'll tell you one interesting thing about this poll that I did. It started with most people saying no. Do you think Elon is happy? It was like 38. It was 42. When I looked at it, it was 42% saying no, 30% saying I wouldn't guess, and like 28% saying yes. It's flipped. And I wonder if that's because people have seen more of him during the course of this interview. So now the poll is 35% yes, 29% no, and 35% saying I wouldn't guess. So yeah, that's really, to me, that was, I've never seen, I can't recall seeing a poll do that. It was a real, so I think perhaps it reflects something about Elon, maybe most of us, that it's like, if you ask, is that person happy? It's like, I don't know. It's an interesting question. It's a tough call. And what is happy? I mean, everyone has down times. What would you call happy? I don't know. It's a really interesting question. Is Elon happy? When you're talking about the richest man on earth, and it's interesting that, we all think, we tend to think that money will make us happier, but I don't know. It seems to be like a recognition that deep inside we know that's not true. It might relieve some stress, but relieving stress is not the same thing as actually being happy. Grifty says the moment AI can create better AI than humans is called the singularity. It's when we lose control of it and all hell breaks loose. Well, that day is coming, that's for sure. It's definitely going to come. It's definitely going to come. And then that improved AI can make better AI. That's crazy. That's really crazy. So this is what I want to do. I want to give. So I was explaining to you how I have a motion that's due tomorrow, and then I do have a motion that I really need to get done. So what I'm going to do is this. I am putting the link here for this interview. You guys can, if you want to catch it, you can catch the rest of this. I'm at 48:39. The link now, I'm saving it. I'm putting it here in. And now it's in. I'm going to put a link to it in the description on YouTube. I'm also going to throw it in the YouTube chat. If any of you want to jump over there right now and read and see the rest of it. Like I said, we're at 48:39 on this thing right now. I'm also going to take care of my Rumble people, just so that you folks think that, recognize that and feel the love. So put that in here. And I'm at 48:39, and I'm gonna I need to shut this thing down here and now because I need to get to work on this motion. I'm gonna be up for the next several hours working on this thing. So that's basically where the show is wrapping up here. Wellesley says AI is like another example of what happened in Eden. The mind was hacked with Adam and Eve. This is a tool for AI to influence our minds. Might sound nuts. It is sort of like, it's a question that just seems to, every answer seems to germinate more questions whenever you talk about AI. But, and if that's perhaps why AI seems so scary, is because I think it comes across something like we question whether we'll ever be able to understand its ramifications. Oh, you're too kind, man. Mom, I appreciate it. Anyway, I really do need to get to work on my motion. So I am going to wrap this up here. I'm redirecting you over, those of you on YouTube, I'm redirecting you over toward Nick Arcada, my good friend Nick. And everyone else, you want to click that link there and check that out. I'm going to put it in the description on Rumble also. So that way, those of you who are on Rumble and want to see and want to be able to click the link, let me just take care of that. All right, so now it's there on Rumble as well in the description. If you refresh, you'll see it there. All right. And that is my show for tonight. I thank you all for joining me. God willing, I hope, assuming I finish my motion timely, in that case, I hope to be doing a show tomorrow. Good chance, very good chance, especially if I actually get some work done tonight. And that's my show for tonight. So I will see you hopefully tomorrow. If not, I'll let you know on Locals. That's a goodlogic.locals.com. I'm also going to try and stream on Locals tomorrow. Really try, because I haven't done anything I haven't streamed on Locals this week, and I sort of miss my diggers. So my diggers, my boys, and my crew. That's my diggers. I will catch you all over there, hopefully tomorrow on Locals. Goodlogic.locals.com. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Be happy. Eat some bugs. Godspeed.